Speaking in Bones is the 18th Temperance Brennan novel, and this one takes place in the mountains of North Carolina. I live in Charlotte. And it goes into the world of web sleuthing. Web sleuths are amateur detectives who get online and they visit sites that list unidentified human remains, and they visit sites that list missing persons, and then they try to match them up, and they try to solve cold cases and give names to the nameless dead. So the story begins with a web sleuth visiting Tempe in her lab in Charlotte and saying, I think you have in your storehouse here a set of remains that I've identified. I think I know who that is. So it leads us up into the Carolina mountains, and we have some very interesting folks up there, the snake handlers, and there's a phenomenon called the Brown Mountain Lights. There have been songs written about it, and tourists come to see them. There are these odd lights that float above Brown Mountain, and they've been observed since the Cherokee times. There are legends about them, and the government has studied them, and nobody can explain what they are. So there are 3 overlooks from which you can see the Brown Mountain Lights, and I thought, what if body parts were found over these overlooks oriented toward this metaphysical phenomenon? So that's kind of how the story unfolds. I've always loved having my foot in 2 different worlds, and first it was academia, and then the world of crime science or crime labs, crime scene analysis. And then I moved from that into the world of literature, writing commercial fiction, and then I moved from that into the world of television. So all of those, it's a circular feedback process. Each one feeds back on the other. I get ideas for my stories from cases that I've worked on, but I also get observational skills that I can bring into my writing. So everything kind of feeds back on each other. I get so many emails and Twitter and people who come to my signings and my public events that say to me, I read your books and I really want to go into forensic science. And I think one of the good things is that particularly there are a large number of girls now that are saying that. And one of the reasons I write a series of young adult books with my son, and these feature Temperance Brennan, who's Temperance Brennan's 14-year-old great niece. And she and her friends, who are boys, 3 boys, try to solve kind of cold cases and mysteries at a middle school, high school level. And the reason we started doing that series is because so many young people were expressing an interest in forensic science, and parents asking, can my daughter read your Temperance Brennan books? And I'd say, well, how old is your daughter? And she'd say 7. And I'd say, no, she can't. But here's something particularly for young girls to read and to get inspired by forensic science. It feels good to know that you're encouraging young people to go into science. And when they get excited about forensic science and they say, I'm going to study forensic science, I always tell them, study a science. Acquire a skill. If you want to work in a crime lab, study chemistry, study molecular biology, study physical anthropology. Don't just learn about forensic science, but acquire a skill in those areas. And it feels good to encourage young people to do that, and especially young women who have traditionally not been encouraged to go into those fields. I think the most common question I'm asked, and not as much now as in the early years, is why does the Temperance Brennan in your books differ so much from the Temperance Brennan on television? I used to get that a lot. Now I think people have reconciled the two, that they're kind of 2 different stages in Temperance Brennan's life, and you can enjoy seeing her use forensic anthropology, whether it's in the books or on television. I think one of the biggest frauds perpetrated by television shows such as Bones or CSI is that every single crime will be solved. You're always going to find that one little fragment of a Paleolithic hind leg of an extinct species of bug that's only found in 1, acre of grass. So you always find that clue, and you always solve that crime, and you always get it done in 52 minutes of airtime every week. That's a falsehood. Every crime is not solved. I have a warehouse at my lab. It's full of shelves, not like the wonderful, floor-to-ceiling lucite backlit shelves Tempe has on TV, but it's full of shelves with cardboard boxes with bones in them, and those are unsolved cases. So, and that's kind of what I address in the new book, is in Speaking in Bones, is looking at these cold cases years and years and years after remains have been found or they've just not been identified. And what can we do with new technology and new science to get them identified? So that is a myth perpetrated by television and by crime fiction in general. But I think the good thing about that, about the popularization of forensic science, is it does get people interested in it, aware of it, and aware of what a powerful tool, if done properly and used in the hands of competent individuals, what a powerful tool forensic science is. I think there is a certain amount of creativity in forensic analysis. You have to be objective. You have to remain emotionally detached from that set of bones or those charred remains or whatever you're looking at. But you also have to keep your mind open and free to create hypotheses, because that's what we're doing in science. We are creating hypotheses. This is a male, or this is a female, or she was between this age and this age. You then observe the data you have in front of you, in my case the bones, and see if your hypothesis is supported. So it is a certain amount of creative thinking involved.